Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada. Nitai Gauriva, Nariva, Nariva, Nitai Gauriva. Nitai Gaur Premanande, Srila Prabhupada ki, Samaveda Bhaktivinoda ki, Gaur Premanande. You can give me a little bit more support for my voice. And maybe, yes, like that, not too much. It's almost a bit too much again, just a touch less. Yeah, okay. So can somebody relieve me from the harmonium and get me the other table? Hare Krishna. Okay. Yes, this table can also go. And then we have that one. Oops. Okay, so thank you very much for coming to our little evening seminar. And yeah, I was requested to speak something in regards to relationships and Vaishnava etiquette. And there is a very nice verse in the Bhagavatam. Everybody is fine with English, right? Why don't you come a little forward here? Because we're such a small group. Yeah, just come around, sit more there. I like to have eye contact, sit more there, not so much on the side. Otherwise, I'm getting a stiff neck here. Yes, yeah, that's much better. Okay, good. Yeah, so there is a very nice verse in the Bhagavatam which describes how we should act towards seniors, equals, and juniors, and how we should not act. Yeah, maybe let's have a little bit more light. Could we have more light? Switch on the light, somebody. Oh, it's going automatically, is it? Or was there somebody? Oh, you were switching. Okay, I didn't see anybody getting up, so that's why I was wondering, is it all going by itself? Nobody got up? Yes, okay, good. Yes, so this is a very nice verse, which of course I have discussed in many places. And in the discussion, we actually realize it's all about envy. The whole verse is actually about envy. How envy manifests towards seniors equals juniors. This is quite an eye-opening discussion because envy is so subtle that we often don't even identify it. And yeah, and very commonly we use the word envy towards somebody who has something which we don't have, right? That's a kind of common understanding. But I like to make it a little broader and see envy as a certain state of heart. Or actually, I didn't even chant the prayers. Sorry. Om Agyantimandasya Agyananjalasalakaya Chakshun Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Guve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manupistam Sthapadam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupakaramayam Nadati Swavadantikam Namam Vishnupada Krishna Pasavutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Govani Pachaine Nivishesha Shunyavadi Pasachada Satarine Vanchakapa Rivasa Kripa Sanvevacha Paditanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadada Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktabinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Yes, I was so eager to start after the delay with the sound system. Good, yes. So let's get back to the point. Yeah, I like to see envy as a certain state of heart, which it actually is. And it comes out in all relationships, not only towards superiors or towards people who have something which we don't have, but even towards juniors, even towards children. We can ventilate our envy, you know. And of course, Vaishnava etiquette and culture is always our saving grace, you know. I like to see Vaishnava etiquette and culture as the crutches people give us, not people give us, Krishna gives us in order to move forward and get better, get well and healthy again, you know. So without Vaishnava etiquette and culture, very difficult to transform our patterns of behaviors because we are so stuck, we are so trapped in these patterns of behaviors, rooting in envy and false ego. By the way, false ego and envy are good friends. They always like to move around together. And of course, false ego comes first, that we think ourselves to be something which we are not, and then envy comes in. So, and yeah, this discussion is of course meant to detect the envy in our hearts and not in other people's hearts. Because especially when we discuss how envy manifests towards juniors, then very easily the mind may say, oh, that's why my superiors treat me like this. They must be envious. I always knew it, there's something wrong, you know. So we don't want to go that way, because if we use this discussion to detect the envy in other people's hearts, what does it mean? That we are envious, exactly. So let's not allow our envy to manifest in such a gross way. And also there is an interesting little, almost a little humorous little thing in one verse, I think it's 5th canto somewhere, in the word-for-word translation. Prabhupada says kalaha, meaning the envious, and then in brackets, almost everyone. Because very often we like to keep ourselves in this illusion that everybody else is so envious, and especially of me. But of course, I don't have that. Of course not. Because we know to be envious is a bit of an ugly quality, and we like to sweep it under the carpet and pretend that we don't have it, and hopefully nobody knows and notices it anyway, and it's all right, and like that. So yeah, that's why Prabhupada makes this point. Almost everyone is actually envious. So, and most likely, this includes us too. Why should we be this big exception who is not envious? So let us understand to begin with how envy manifests. So, as soon as sense gratification is a major goal in life, envy enters, because we want to be the biggest enjoyer, controller, and we use every relationship to reduce other people's importance, to establish our superiority. This is what envy is all about. And sometimes it's so subtle that we don't even identify it. We will understand this maybe today. So good to understand where it comes from. And because almost everyone here in the material world wants to enjoy. That's why we are here, because originally our real home is the spiritual world. There is zero desire for sense gratification. Everybody just wants to give the Lord pleasure and is working all in harmony and cooperation to give the Lord the most amazing pleasure. So there is no desire for sense gratification there. So, and because we did think, what would it be like to be in Krishna's position already, boom, out. And that's how we ended up here. So, all right, if you want to try and enjoy in forgetfulness of Krishna, here you have your chance. So that's why we basically all have the desire to enjoy. And that's why we all are envious. Right, yes. So I want to read this verse 4.834 from the Srimad-Bhagavatam. And I don't even want you to look it up on your phone, because I want to do this a little bit interactively, that we read it and you please hear very attentively. And then we go through the 3 relationships, seniors equals juniors, and what's the envious behavior, what's the non-envious behavior. And that gives us the Vaishnava etiquette, how we are meant to act, so I'll just chant once the Sanskrit. Gunadikam mudam lipset anukusham gunadamat maitrim samanad anvichen natapya abhibhuyate. So translation, every man, and here man is human being. So Prabhupada often uses man instead of human. So it includes women also, of course. Every man should act like this. When he meets a person more qualified than himself, he should be very pleased. When he meets someone less qualified than himself, he should be compassionate towards him. And when he meets someone equal to himself, he should make friendship with him. In this way, one is never affected by the threefold miseries of this material world. So, this last sentence is already quite a profound statement. If we just learn how to act without envy, we will never suffer in this world. In other words, the root cause of all our tensions and in relationships, our miseries, our sufferings, is actually envy. Yeah, because very often people ask, tell us something about how to make our relationships more loving and this and that. Well, the root cause that it's not all loving is envy. So let's understand how envy manifests. And I've done this discussion in many places of the world. And people often say, wow, this was a heart surgery. I've got it all. I never even noticed. But I've got the envy towards genius equals genius. It's me. Wow, okay, good to know. So, yeah. And then if we are actually willing to make some internal work and work on it, then the relationships naturally become more loving and harmonious and respectful and all that, Yes. So now let us hear what Prabhupada says in the purport. Generally, when we find someone more qualified than ourselves, we become envious of him. So here Prabhupada uses the term in the most common way, that we are envious of somebody who has something which we don't have. When we find someone less qualified, we deride him. So that's how the envy manifests towards this subordinate or, inferior person. And when we find someone equal, we become very proud of our activities. So that's how the envy manifests between equals. These are the causes of all material tribulations. One more time, the statement is there that this envy is the root cause of all suffering there. The great sage Narada therefore advised that a devotee should act perfectly. Instead of being envious of a more qualified man, one should be jolly to receive him. Instead of being oppressive to a less qualified man, one should be compassionate towards him, just to raise him to the proper standard. And when one meets an equal, instead of being proud of one's own activities before him, one should treat him as a friend. One should also have compassion for the people in general who are suffering due to forgetfulness of Krishna. And then one more time, last sentence is coming. Very often in Prabhupada's purports, last sentence, he one more time hits the nail on the head. These important functions will make one happy within this material world. So one more time, this theme is there, that if we just learn how to act without envy, we will be happy. So now we may think, well, but aren't we always preaching that we cannot be happy in this material world? But here Prabhupada says we actually can, so it seems to contradict. But actually it doesn't. Because as we said, envy comes from the desire to enjoy. So a person who is actually free of envy must be a pure devotee, actually. And a pure devotee within his consciousness is already in the spiritual world. Pure devotee in one sense is not part of this material world anymore. He is so absorbed in serving, hearing, chanting the glories of the Lord. And so, therefore, a non-envious person can be happy even wherever he may be, in London and New York, and doesn't matter where, because he's not part of this material world. So now let us go through these three different kinds of relationships. Let us first have a look at the relationships towards seniors. So who remembers how we receive a senior when we are non-envious? Jolly. We are happy, we are jolly to receive the person. So in other words, if we are envious, we are not so jolly to receive him, right? So we think, oh no, not he is coming now, okay. Let's hope he doesn't stay so long. And we go up to him, oh nice, probably nice to see you. So how long are you staying? Oh, 3 days, oh good, you know. And we think, oh thank God, after 3 days he's going again. And then I can have the senior to myself, you know. Yes. Yeah, and these things are going on, you know. We may not want to admit it, but it is there, you know. And what else do we do? There's a few more things we do. Much more than simply not being jolly to receive him. So you imagine a senior person visits. If we are envious, what do? Yeah, we're all pretty good at that. We criticize, we find fault, we talk bad behind his back, you know. Why do we do it? To reduce his importance and establish our superiority. Very simple example from everyday life in an ISKCON temple. Let's say a senior person gave a lecture and a friend of ours says, oh, that was a nice lecture, wasn't it? And then we say, yeah, but, yeah, it was all right, but he didn't quote so many verses, was not so shastic. You know, we find something. In other words, indirectly, we say, if I had given the lecture, I know so many more verses. So, you know, this was not so fantastic. So I could have done it much better. Or with the kirtan. Oh, it was a nice kirtan, wasn't it? Yeah, it was all right, but, you know, the melody was a little strange. I couldn't even follow it. I couldn't relate to it. Or, well, his Madanga playing really needs a bit more refinement, and he only knows 2 beats and whatever, you know. So now, interestingly, our previous Acharya, Sridhar Swami, he says, whether it is true or not, talking about faults of a Vaishnava means to blaspheme him. Even if it is true. Now that is something which we often overlook. You know, we think, well, it's true that his Madanga playing is not so fantastic, or that he didn't quote so many verses. You know, even if it is true. And we think, well, in the name of truth, you know, we have a right to make that statement. And we can all cover it up by saying, well, I'm just sharing my experience in the class. What's wrong with that? You know, after all, speaking the truth, freedom of speech. Modern days, everybody can say what they want. So why can't I say the truth, my God? You know? But now, if we are really looking in our heart, and we are honest to ourselves, we have to admit just the fact that we are impelled to make the statement actually shows there's envy. It's very subtle, but it's there. You know? Yeah. Oh, we do this all the time, actually. You know? But the contaminated intelligence always can justify things. Well, it's true. Well, I'm just sharing with my friend what's wrong. And you know, yeah. Yeah, so whether it's true or not, speaking about a fault of a Vaishnava means to blaspheme him. So, and to blaspheme a devotee, this is the first offense to chanting the holy name. After Mangalarati, we recite it, you know, yes. So this may very well be one main reason why we don't make as quickly advancement as we could, because we are almost every day blaspheming somebody, unknowingly even, because it's so subtle. So, and there's one more thing which we sometimes do towards a senior person if we are envious. What else can happen? Oh, well, that would be really against Vaishnava etiquette. Yes, as a junior, it's not our position to correct a person. My God, that's a pretty gross neglect of etiquette. Because if this would not be there, then very easily this would feed the tendency of fault finding. That if it would be okay for a junior to correct a senior, then, a junior even has more this tendency for envy, most likely. So then the junior would always look, oh, he's doing this, oh, I should tell him, my God. And yes. And also the situation is for a junior to really understand a senior person's mind may not be always so easy, because he's junior, he's most likely, junior actually means the consciousness is more covered, So, and then he can't see so nicely. Yeah, so that's completely against the etiquette to correct somebody. But now, something a little more mild and subtle. What do we do? Yes. Yes, we ignore him. We don't give any attention to him. We pretend he's nobody and nothing. Not even worthwhile saying Hare Krishna or anything. He's nobody. We pretend we don't see him. Or we look the other way and just avoid. So that's also a way of reducing a person's importance, right? By not giving him any attention or something, Yes. Yeah, so these are the envious ways, the main envious ways of dealing with a person. So now, what's the non-envious way? We said already, we are pleased, we are jolly to receive him. And how else should we associate with a more experienced person? Yes, and how does the humility manifest practically? What do we do? Yeah, we offer menial service, and what else? Yeah, we are eager for inquiry, for asking for guidance and hearing from the person and so on. So these are very important elements of associating with seniors, how we take advantage of a senior person's presence, by serving and by hearing. And they enhance each other. So the more we offer service, the more we feel inspired to hear. And the more we hear and inquire, the more we are inspired to serve. So they enhance each other. Very important. We have in Bhagavad Gita, Tadvidi Paripatina, Pariprashnena Sevaya. So Pariprashna is asking question, and Sevaya is offering service. And that's in connection with Guru in the Bhagavad Gita, but it's not only in connection with Guru, it's in connection with any more experienced person, and not only towards visitors, but anybody in the community. That's again where the over-familiarity sneaks in, that we may be in a community with senior devotees, but because we see them all the time, then we become more casual and, it's just such and such, and we forget, maybe that person is a Prabhupada disciple and has so much more experience as we had than we have. But yeah, as we talked the other day, over familiarity, invites disrespectful behavior and offenses, and then of course we cannot take advantage of a person's presence, And also these days we can observe that people often just like to talk about themselves rather than inquiring, Have you noticed? People love talking about themselves, about their achievements and what they've all been doing. And this towards a senior person would be a little inappropriate unless the person asks you, okay, what service are you doing? What are you doing for work? And this and that. So then we can humbly share. But if we are just kind of talking about ourselves, it has the flavor of trying to boast and impress the person how great we are. And, so this is all a bit inappropriate, Yes, yes. Yeah, and I mean it also, for example, let's imagine we are a rather young devotee and we're sitting, next to a newcomer to preach to that person. And then a more experienced devotee comes and joins us. So the proper etiquette would be what? What do we do in that situation? Yeah, we introduce the senior person and we actually kind of involve him. We hand over the discussion to him. Prabhu, can you, or Mataji, can you share something about this and how would you explain this? But sometimes, then a young devotee takes that opportunity to show off how great he can talk and what he all knows, and the senior person just sits there twiddling his thumb, and he ignores him, There's again the ignoring there. This is going on, is going on. Yes. Or even, let's say, a group of younger devotees sit at a table and eat. Senior person joins them. Unless they have some really important things there to discuss or something, okay, let them discuss. But the normal etiquette would be, a senior person is joining us. Okay, let's involve that person, let's inquire from that person, but sometimes people just ignore, and they just pretend person is not there, So, yeah, it's kind of a little uncultured and simply not knowing how to take advantage of a senior person's presence, And now Kali Yuga, the pride in people increases, false ego, materialistic culture is all about boosting and feeding the false ego and showing off how great you are. The more expert you are in showing off and promoting yourself, the more successful you are. And this, of course, enters also our communities because we bring this mindset into our communities, and we just, use every situation to show off how great we are, whatever, So, but then in spiritual culture, it's the opposite, we want to give up this tendency of showing off and promoting ourselves and all that. So it's really like day and night, Yeah, so these scenarios, especially here in the Western world, it is not so deeply known and understood, and these things actually should be included in the Bhakta course or something. There's some section on Vaishnava etiquette, I believe, but I don't know how deep and detailed this. Yes, small section. Yeah, I mean, could be maybe made a little more detailed because often people don't actually hear these things. They don't hear these things at all. In India, Bangladesh, it is still more understood and people still have it a bit more in the blood, you know. But here in the Western world, it is not there anymore, you know. Yes, it is all lost and forgotten type thing. Yeah, so let's move on to, or let me maybe to make it a little more interactive, maybe we don't, usually I go through the whole thing, seniors equals juniors, and only then ask for questions, because usually I'm always under time pressure. I have to finish after 1 hour or something, you know. But today, as far as I know, we are not so much under time pressure. So maybe we ask, do we have any questions about this now? Relationship with seniors, behavior with seniors. Yes. Yeah. Well, but I dare say if a person doesn't want to talk much, then he or she will not mix much with people. You know, then they sit a little separately, alone or something. Actually, Prabhupada was a bit like that. He usually didn't like to have some in-depth discussion. And it is also mentioned in the Vaishnava etiquette, actually, that one should honor prasadam. In some temples around the world, they read Krishna book while everybody sits and eats. You know? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, through the sound system, somebody reads Krishna book, you know. And it is said that, you know, you should, if you talk, you should only have some very light exchanges. I personally feel in many temples that prasadam time is actually the only time when people can connect, you know, because everybody's busy running around. So the lunch, I mean, I like to talk to people, you know, yes. Because often it's the only time when you can talk to people, you know. Everybody's running around, busy, busy, busy. All right, Vaishnava etiquette in former times, people were not running around. Life was not as fast as it is today. I mean, seriously, over prasadam, it's usually the time when you can associate a bit. Apart from the programs where you hear from each other, but that personal interaction, it mainly happens for prasadam. So I always look, who can I join to associate? Yeah, yeah. And often very nice talks come about and you connect, you get to know people, you know, especially when you're visiting and you don't know anybody. I never eat alone in my room. I find this completely, now I want to be with the devotees and I want to, you know, associate and get to know people and so on, you know. Yeah. But in any case, as far as I understand, the etiquette is like that we should not have some heavy discussions or debates or maybe arguments or something, because it ruins your digestion, you know, you immediately, you can't digest or something, you know. So, yeah. But, yeah, a bit of socializing, you know, when life is so busy, I'm kind of transgressing the Vaishnava etiquette in that regard. And I have good results with it, put it that way. You know, I meet people and get to know people, you know. Any other question? Yes.
Mataji, what would be the right way to give constructive critics? Because when I came here to Germany, I had to unlearn all the Vaishnava tradition ways of treating the elders. Because yes,
Really?
in Germans were like, just be direct. If you don't want to help, it's okay. The age difference is, you got to be direct. That's how we can develop.
But that's not in the temple.
Yes, but when we're running an organization, for instance,
Well, maybe in the professional world things are different. Of course, in the professional world, people don't follow Vaishnav etiquette, you know. So this whole discussion is meant for Vaishnav association. How do we deal with Vaishnavas, you know? And there, towards seniors, yeah, we have to be very careful, you know, even to make suggestions and advice and all this, because then we accept the superior position. But we are junior, you know, so we are not meant to do that, you know. Yes. Even towards our parents also. Even if they eat meat and they're not devotees, still they are our seniors. And we are meant to respect them, which does not mean that we follow everything they tell us to do, but we're polite. We don't get into discussions. We don't answer back and argue with them and tell them that they're wrong and instruct them and correct them. This is not the way we are meant to treat elders. And I mean, many devotees have tense relationships with their parents. And I dare say very often it is us who are not following the proper etiquette. And we think, they're just meat-eating karmis and I'm a devotee and I have to tell them what to do and what not. And parents, of course, don't like that. Oh, my mother was so sensitive. As soon as I was a little bit, you know, telling her, she was immediately reacting, you know. Yes. So, yeah. It's usually us who are not following the proper etiquette, and that's why we have the tense relationships with the parents, you know. Because here in the Western world, again, this is not taught anymore. 100 years ago, it was very, that was the behavior that we respect the parents and all this. But now, people argue and do so many things towards the parents, you know. So, and even at work, I mean, of course, Prabhupada was also sometimes asking his disciples for some suggestions. So, you know, if a senior asks us, what do you think? So then in a very humble way, you know, we can express what we think. But then the senior person may not follow it anyway or something, you know. And also a very simple trick, for example, let's say in a lecture. It's so subtle, you know, so you may think the speaker made some wrong conclusions here and you know it better. So the proper etiquette would be to package that in a humble question form. But isn't it maybe like this? What do you think? Could you comment on that? You know, I came across some idea that it is like this and this. What do you think? You know, rather than making a statement, I heard it is like this and this and this and this. You know, so then it is a bit more challenging and provocative. You know, but if we package it in a question form, you know, or what happens if we do like this, and isn't it like this and that, or whatever, you know. So that changes the whole way and mood, how we ask, you know, even though we may have a little bit of pride there in our heart thinking we know better, but at least by putting it in question form, you know, then we take the more humble position. And this is even between husband and wife too. In our Grihastha session there the other day, we were reading this purport where Prabhupada says, by nature, a man wants to accept the superior position. So same thing for the wife. It doesn't mean the wife cannot say anything to her husband, he is superior. No, she has to learn the tactic of making her idea his idea. And all it requires is to give up our false ego that, see, I knew better, it was my idea. So we give that up, and we also put it in question form, or we say, oh, what do you think? I have this fear that this and this and this could happen. What do you think? Then we handed it back to him. When we let him make the decision, then most likely he will say, oh yeah, sure, you're actually right. Then it's his decision. Rather than saying, what, are you crazy? This and this will happen. Can't you see? Blah, blah, blah. So this husband will not welcome. But if she first accepts the idea, and then, he feels already encouraged, and then she voices humbly her concerns, and what do you think? And hands it back to him, So then most likely he will agree and say, yeah, actually she's right, good, yeah, let's do it like that. And then it's his decision, So it's just a tactic. So this voicing things in a Christian form, that always is very helpful, rather than fixed statement, Yeah. All right, maybe let's move on to the relationship towards juniors. So, what was the envious behavior towards juniors? Who remembers from Prabhupada's purport? Deride. Yeah, we kind of push them down, we make fun out of them, we crack some jokes which make the person look foolish in the presence of others, oppressive, talking down to a person in an oppressive way. That's envy. Again, we use the relationship to push him more down, even though he is already down. He or she, I always say he as meaning people, So, all right, he is already inferior, but we, in a perverted way, we enjoy our superiority by pushing him down, making him more foolish, just to establish our superiority, Yes, that's behind it. And the mood is, yes, I do want you to come up, but definitely not higher than I am. I'm always up here, you will always stay down there. Yeah, these things, we're not free of them, they are there, Yes. That maybe we don't want to give people a chance to really, manifest their capacities, because we are afraid, then they will do it better than we doing, especially if we may get a payment for our service. This is always invites a bit of a risk that we want to keep people down, because we are afraid they can do it better and then they will get our job, because some services we do also sometimes give some money. It's not all voluntary. Yeah, that can easily invite some danger that we get attached, and we don't want people to come up, because then our source of income is gone. So what else do we do with juniors when we are envious? Yeah, we may have some, in a subtle way, some exploitative mentality there, and use them for our big ambitions and plans or something, or whatever, and then take the credit for ourselves or something, Yes. What else? Yeah, also kind of ignoring, especially ignoring their skills, as we mentioned, out of fear that they actually become more prominent and so on, Yes. Yeah, I mean, to really want, oh yeah, let me share this, the delegating, there's two ways of delegating. The envious and the non-envious way of delegating a task, you know. So the envious way of delegating is that we say, we have this mentality, either you do it or I do it. And okay, you want to do it, good luck, you do it, go ahead. And we don't follow up. We don't ask, oh, how are you doing? Do you need some help? Do you need some more manpower? You need maybe some money, some good tips, you know? No, we are too busy. He wanted to do it, let him do it. And maybe deep down in our heart, we hope that he will not be so successful, you know? And then we can say, just see, I knew you can't do it. I knew I should have done it myself. But you wanted to do it, so there you see what comes out of it, you know? So yeah, it's almost like we don't really want to help him to become successful, so just so we can say, I can do it better, you know? So to really want somebody to be more glorious and successful than we are, that requires non-envy, you know? Yes. Yeah, these things, unfortunately, they are there, you know, in our communities, because, yeah, we are not free from envy yet, you know, so it comes out. And I dare say it almost comes out sometimes more than in the secular world, like in the professional world. Sometimes, not wanting to criticize here our ISKCON society, but yeah, I'm just making the diagnosis here. But because in the material world, people are profit orientated, and they know if they actually delegate and empower people, the company gets more profit. And then maybe as, you know, as a leader or something, we get some bonus and. So that's why often people in the professional world, they're much better in delegating and empowering people than we are. Maybe not so much here, you know, Simhachalam has a youthful spirit, but there is some communities where there's still this autocratic management style, you know, which we have had for a long time, and the philosophy can easily be used for this, because we are senior and everybody has to do as I say, and you know, and that can be very autocratic and stifling to people, and then they just don't feel empowered and inspired to really give their energy, you know. Yes. Yeah, so we have to be a little careful, you know. Yeah, because it's not that people out there are less envious. No, of course not. But because they're profit-orientated. That's why they learn all the techniques, how to bring more profit to the company. Whereas we are not so profit-orientated, and that's why we're more stuck with the autocratic style still, you know. And it can be nicely backed up with our philosophy of respecting and following the seniors and all that. So, but the seniors have to learn how to empower people, you know, and hand over the task to the younger generation and not stay in the TP's post until they're 79 or something, you know. So there is projects like that. And it just doesn't inspire and attract the youth, you know, very clear. They should hand over and empower and inspire, you know. Yeah, so there is these two ways of delegating, you know. The envious one where we don't follow up, we don't want that person to really be successful, you know. But then the non-envious way, we are happy to do anything to, you know, celebrate the glory and success of that younger devotee, and we give him all the credit. He did it all, you know. Yes. There is one more thing which does Yeah, it also happens in our society. What do we do with juniors when we are envious? Sometimes also with children. Mm. Mm. Mataji, you don't remember. You've heard this before, right? Probably more than once. It's one of my favorite topics. What do we do?
We keep them in a place where they cannot grow.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of covered that already, that we don't want them to come up. Now there's something else, something a little different. What do we do? How do we demonstrate our superiority? Yeah, but not so nicely and sweetly, but we constantly, unnecessarily, overly harshly correct them and instruct them all the time. Right? Yeah. That's a pretty common thing. Yeah, when newcomers come, they have the experience, they do everything wrong, you know, and then everybody pounces on them. Oh, you have to do like that. Oh, you have to do, you know, you know. And it seems like everybody's happy to, oh, there's somebody I can correct now. So it can almost, be also a way just to ventilate your envy, then show you superiority, you know, that, he's doing everything wrong, and again, I told you so, didn't I? And you know. Which, of course, doesn't mean we shouldn't correct people, but it's a whole culture of correcting others, actually. Who corrects whom? Just the fact that somebody makes a mistake doesn't mean that anybody can walk up to them and correct them, you know? It actually has to be our service. Usually in temples, you know, we have one man who corrects the man, at least in the ashram, one lady who's in charge of the ladies and corrects them, you know, so somebody should accept that as service. It should be given to somebody as service to correct people. And we have to be senior in order to correct. And we also have to have a relationship with that person. You know, if the relationship is not very strong, then people's false ego usually rebels and the relationship is spoiled. And it actually doesn't uplift them, you know. So the more deeper and, trusting the relationship is, the more faith the young devotee has in us, the more we can touch upon touchy topics and correct them. But if we know the person has no faith in us and doesn't respect us much, then our correction will not be very effective, and most likely it will only damage the relationship or something, you know. And interestingly, there is even the Vaishnava etiquette that one should be non-envious in order to correct somebody. So, but now we just said almost everyone is envious, so it means nobody can correct anybody, right? Well, at least we should know that even if the correction is perfect, but if it is given in this huffy, envious mood, it will contaminate the heart, actually. It poisons, because it ignites our envy and false ego, right? I'm sure we all had that experience from both ends, either giving a correction in some huffy, agitated mood, or receiving a correction in a huffy, agitated mood, right? I'm sure we've all been in that situation. So, how do we feel? How do we feel giving or receiving a correction in a huffy, agitated, envious mood? Bad, yes. Doesn't make us feel good at all. We feel very bad. And we may get confused. We may think, well, but the correction was right. I had to give this correction, so why do I feel all bad about it, Well, because we didn't give it in a non-envious mood, That's why it contaminates our hearts, giving it like that, and the person receiving it, It just spreads envy and false ego. Yeah. So that's why one should not correct others in that mood. So I always give this, advice that if it is our service to correct others, if we see somebody doing something wrong and we are all agitated and we can hardly control our tongue, I have to right now tell them, how can they do this? I'm sure we all know that situation too, where we get so agitated and better not to correct. Not to correct in such a situation. We have to wait until we cool down. Sleeping it over is always a good idea. Next morning, the world looks already different. Just sleeping one night changes the mindset. Or we may have to sleep 2 nights, whatever it takes to cool down. And then another very good and practical tip is that before we go up to the person and give the correction, we have this prayerful mood that we pray to Krishna, please, please help me to get this correction across in a well-wishing mood, being their dear, most well-wishing friend who wants their very best. And if we have that prayerful mood, Krishna allows us, at least for those 2 minutes when we give the correction, to be non-envious, even though we may not always be non-envious. But if we have that meditation and prayerful mood, it works. It changes our mindset, and then we really bring it across in this well-wishing mood. And then, of course, the person will happily accept it, The person can feel, oh, this person is my friend. The person wants my very best. So, oh yeah, thank you for telling me, It really works. It's very simple, But we should never instruct, correct people in this agitated, huffy, envious, false ego mode. Same as there with children. So often I see this, that parents are agitated, scolding and all angry mood and agitated. So that, that only, ignites the child's envy and agitation. Agitation there. So, yeah, and then sometimes parents are wondering, oh, my child is always rebellious and doesn't want to listen. Well, maybe we are giving the instruction in an envious mood, and that's why the child is like that, We may never even think about it, So it's really like that. The envy for its ego is so powerfully contaminating that it poisons the best idea, the best instruction, the best correction is poisoned if it's given like that. So good to know. And of course for temple life, ashram life, this, I've seen it all, how person in charge of the ashram, men as well as women, that they always treat the devotees like this, and this creates a very negative energy and atmosphere, and then, it's not good, and then they don't respect that person, and then there's all these tensions and ego battles, and so that doesn't lead to anywhere. Yeah, so those who have to correct people, they have to know these things. And then also we have to know when to correct. Just the fact that somebody does a mistake, it is not necessarily that the situation is not fixed or the person is uplifted necessarily by correction. We have to be experienced enough to see what to let go without correction, and simply waiting until the person gets more mature and more purified. We can't rectify everything just by correction. Some things just need time to go by, and the person will realize after a while. I mean, we just imagine if Prabhupada had started the movement just constantly correcting everybody, I don't think he would have gotten very far, Yes. So, it requires a little bit. Ultimately, it requires non-envy, it requires compassion and, a kindness and really wanting to people to make advancement, and then we will know how to deal with people, Yes. And there's also one interesting point. There is a verse in the Bhagavatam, or is it in a purport? I can't remember. Where the statement is that a non-envious person is strict with himself and can be liberal with others. That's also a good one to understand. So if we are non-envious, we can be quite liberal in the sense of understanding and accommodating people's shortcomings. Let's take an example. Let's say eating chocolate. It's, a controversial topic. Some people say, no problem, Prabhupada ate chocolate. Some people say, no, he ate chocolate when he didn't realize that there's cocoa in it and it's got caffeine. But then so many Mahajas, they eat chocolate. And, some do, some don't. So, let's say we decided we don't eat chocolate. And then we get all agitated when other people eat chocolate. So, there's some envy there. Yeah. Because maybe we actually also still like the taste of chocolate. And then we think, they should also not eat chocolate. And they're in Maya and they're not following what Prabhupada said. And some people are on a whole mission over these topics, Oh my God. Actually, good to understand, there's envy behind it. A non-envious person is happy to set the example. I don't eat chocolate, and he doesn't get agitated if other people eat chocolate. Okay, let them eat chocolate, and then sooner or later, if they have a higher taste, then they give up the lower taste. And they don't make a whole fuss about it and a whole big discussion and all this. Yeah. So whenever people get agitated over something like this, even with dress code, it also is sometimes that people get all worked up and that, the women are not covering their head and, but they should cover their head and Prabhupada said we should cover, God, So there's envy behind it because maybe we feel actually more free and easy also are not covering their head, but then we accepted that and then we get all agitated if others don't, So, non-envious person will happily set the example, and they're liberal with the others, and they're common. This really smells like a rose. Yeah, so, and they can be liberal with others and accommodating and, and they don't make a whole thing about it. You know? Yes, interesting to understand. For many years, I didn't even catch on to that point, you know, but that there's envy behind it, actually, you know. Yeah. If people think everybody has to do like I do because I know how to do and I'm the only one who follows what Prabhupada says and all this, you know. Yes. So now, non-envious behavior. What did Prabhupada say towards juniors? Yeah, the magic word, compassion. You know, a non-envious person affectionately reaches out, uplifts, wants them to be more glorious, more successful than we are, you know. Yes. And also non-envious person really knows how to connect with anybody and everybody and act for their ultimate benefit. Like Prabhupada was the perfect example. He could connect with a small child or with a hippie or a drunkard or a scientist or Christian priest, no matter who the person was. Prabhupada knew how to connect with them and knew how to act for their ultimate benefit, you know. And Prabhupada, sometimes he was really heavy, calling people fools and rascals, mudhas, and so many things. Mudha means ass, you know. So, yeah, so he was super heavy sometimes. But because people could feel that Prabhupada was absolutely non-envious, people didn't take offense. They could feel he was saying that for their own benefit. But we can't imitate this. You know, if we call people fools and rascals and mudhas, then most likely there's some pride and envy mixed in, and we just want to push them down and these fools and rascals and so on. So we can't imitate Prabhupada. No. Any question about that? Relationship to those towards juniors, envious, non-envious behavior. Yes. Mm. Mm. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, if we had some traumatic experiences of some kind or some disappointments, you know, so we have to do some internal work to digest them. We can't carry this luggage forever with us around. We can't enter with such luggage into Goloka Vrindavan. We have to do some internal work. We have to learn to forgive. In the False Ego book, there's a whole chapter on forgiveness. Because when we can't forgive, there's an inability to tolerate behind it. And inability to tolerate means false ego. You know? So yeah, it's a very interesting discussion, but it's a different topic and we don't have the time, you know. So, and that's why we need mentors. We need a mentor, a coach. In India we say counselor, but in the West counselor means more some professional psychotherapeutic counseling or something, you know, so we use the word differently. So we usually in the Western world we say mentor or coach. Yeah, highly important, because we need one person in our life where we can really open our heart and share our innermost struggles and fears, and where we know this person has no other interest except my spiritual growth and development. Yeah, and the person is more experienced and can really guide us and also sometimes correct us and you know. We need such a person because our gurus are usually too far away and they have sometimes hundreds and thousands of disciples. We may only see him once a year and we may not even get a chance to speak to him privately sometimes, you know. So we need somebody on a more regular basis who can really help us to assess ourselves and all that. So, and then with such a person, even abusive situations can also be avoided because then we have immediately somebody we can run to and open our heart, and then that person can look into it and maybe speak with that senior or go to that person's authority. You know, that's the Vaishnava etiquette. If we see something in a senior, or if we are not properly treated by a senior, we cannot approach that person directly. We should go to his authority, his, you know, authority, his mentor, his guru, whatever. You know, that's the proper etiquette. And from a material point of view, it would be, oh, you're dobbing me in or something. Why didn't you ask me? You know, why didn't you approach me with this? Why are you going to my superior? No, but in spiritual life, that's the proper etiquette. We as a junior are not meant to confront a senior person with such things. You know? Yes. Yeah, very important to understand. Any other question in regards to juniors? Well, then quickly let's move on because time is going. Towards juniors, what's the envious behavior? Who remembers what Prabhupada said? Oh, sorry, yes, equals. We are equals, yeah, juniors, we just did. So what did Prabhupada say towards the envious behavior towards equals? Yeah, but what what exactly did Prabhupada say? He didn't say competition, but he said, yeah, that's exactly what he said. We become proud of our own activities, meaning we like to chant our own glories. What we've all been doing, how great we are, blah, blah, blah. You know, and yes, basically the mood is, okay, we are equals, but actually I'm a little superior and I'm gonna show you that I am, you know. And so that's why we try and impress the person, how great we are, you know. And yeah, and it means competition is there. Immediately, amongst equals, immediately, if they're not free from envy, there's competition there. Let's imagine an example from everyday life in ISKCON. Let's imagine two not so mature preachers meet. So I'm emphasizing not so mature. So two not so mature preachers meet. So because they're not free from envy, then one will say, all in the name of sharing. I'm just sharing with my friend. Oh, guess what? I was in New York, it was Rath Yatra, and they asked me to lead the kirtan. Imagine that. You want to see here YouTube? I send you the link, you can watch it all. And then the stage program, I was again asked to give the speech. There was also Maharajas there, but they must have been all too tired, so they asked me to give the whole talk. Again, here, YouTube, I'll send you the link, you know, you can watch it all. And then I went to LA and same thing again. I was leading the kirtan, I was doing this. And he goes on and on and on. So, and then after a while he says, and what about you, Prabhu? What did you do? You know? And then by then, the other one thinks, oh my God, I've done nothing compared to you. So, she, Pladna Singhadev, Devaki. Yeah, so by then he is so impressed. Wow, you're so great and fantastic. I'm nothing compared to you. Not even worthwhile talking about it. So like that, we chant our own glories. We are proud of our activities. Again, to reduce the other person's importance, establish our superiority. That is there in all relationships, Yes. Yeah, and competition is there, Yes. So, and what's the non-envious behavior amongst equals? Yeah, it's that friendship. Although we can say, well, can't there be friendship between, from senior to junior or junior to senior? There can also be friendship. So why only amongst equals? Well, amongst equals who are non-envious, there's a special sweetness in their friendship. Yes. And there is also a certain kind of competition there. What do they do? That the competition looks very differently. So two equals who are non-envious, how do they compete? Yes? Hang on. They uplift each other how? Okay. What are you saying? Yeah. So out of Vaishnava humility, both see themselves as junior and less experienced. And they push each other forward. Or you give the class, I want to hear from you. Or you sing, you lead the kirtans. You kirtans are so much nicer and empowering and all that. So yeah, they push each other forward rather than pushing themselves forward, And also they inquire from each other and serve each other, like the junior treats the senior. They want to offer menial service to each other, and that's kind of the competition there, And actually, this is exactly the way people associate in the spiritual world. Like it is said, the gopis and manjaris, they actually feel more bliss, more pleasure pushing the others towards Krishna and assisting them to make the most pleasing arrangements for Krishna and let them be there. That's more enjoyable for them rather than being with Krishna themselves, So we can just imagine if our spiritual master visits, do we have this mood that we want to, somebody likes me here and flies around my nose. When our guru comes, are we in this mood that we rather want the other person to be close to guru and serve them nicely and that they get the credit? Well, probably we are not. We want to be there. We want to be noticed and, get the credit and be recognized and all that. So we've still got quite a bit, quite a long way to go to really qualify to go to the spiritual world, And spiritual world, because there's no desire for sense gratification whatsoever, therefore there is no envy there whatsoever, Yes. So, and not only do they push each other forward, but they also have this very intimate, confidential inquiry from each other, that they ask each other about their secrets of their devotional life, That, for example, one says to the other, "Oh, Prabhu, you've been a brahmachari for 35 years in the street every day distributing books. How do you do it? What's your secret?" And then the other one says, "And Prabhu, you've been married for 35 years. How do you do it? And you're still serving and doing so many things and putting up with kids and wife and whatnot. What's your secret? How do you do it?" So there's very intimate inquiry which you can only have on that equal level. You can't so easily, stick your nose into the, private, confidential secrets of a senior devotee, and junior may not have so many secrets to share there. So, but amongst equals, that's where that exchange takes place, and only can take place. So that's what makes this friendship special. But we have to pay the price for being non-envious, only then it's special. Yeah, but that makes it very sweet and special and confidential, yeah, more than with seniors or juniors. Yeah. Yes. So now my question to you, which relationship is most challenging or most purifying? Yeah, challenging means purifying. With seniors equals juniors. Okay, so even though you walked in just right now, you catch the point. Yes, it's true. Many people, it usually takes a while. People say with juniors, people say with seniors. Of course, as a young devotee, we do get a lot of purification and upliftment if we associate with seniors, definitely. But often if we associate for too long with them, then we become over-familiar because we are new, we are junior, and we don't really appreciate and fully take advantage of a senior devotee's association. That also often happens in ashram, temple life and all that. So, but the real challenge is the association with equals, because, that's where the most pinching and biting envy from the most hidden corners of the heart comes to the surface. To associate with juniors, surround ourselves with juniors who all look up to us, very easy to say, yes, I'm their servant, no problem, That's the easiest. And to associate with a top senior level, also not so difficult, because there's a certain glory coming along. To be close to a senior, we hope that some of his glory is splashing over to us. And we can say, just see, it's always me next to Guru Maharaj. I'm the most confidential associate here and servant. And because he's so special, and I'm always next to him, that's why I'm the next special one. So that's also pretty easy. Just the other day, I had somebody telling me how one servant of his guru, he always says, yeah, and Guru Maharaj does what I'm telling him to do. Yes, he listens to me. Oh my God. Yeah, so but equals, that's where we have to show true color, whether we have this mood, yes, we are equals, but actually I'm a little superior, We can't hide it, And it is indeed like that most conflicts in our communities and also in the world altogether come about through this difficulty of associating with equals. Yeah. That's where the ego battles are and this and that, Yeah, I mean, tomorrow Indidumna Maharaj is coming. I don't know if we have many disciples here, but 2 expert cooks cooking lunch for Guru can be intense. I don't know if anybody ever experienced it. Oh my God, immediately the competition starts. Oh, what now? Don't you know Guru Maharaj changed his diet? He can't have that. Not good for him. He doesn't like it like this. No, I know. And oh my God. I've seen devotees stealing each other's pots, stealing each other's boga, definitely not sharing recipes, that only I know what Guru Maharaj likes and how to make it. I'm not going to tell anybody how to make this. So, oh my God. Or once I witnessed where one devotee made something for the visiting sannyasi, and then the lady in charge, she said, no need to serve it. I know it's not good for him. He will not like it. He can't eat this. Take it out. No need to serve it. My God. Why not show it to him? Maybe he wants to try one spoon. He can ask what's in it, So why not serve him? But no need to serve. Take it out. Yeah, these things are going on, and we don't even realize what's behind it, Yeah. Yes, and I mean, in the Bhagavatam, we also have the examples of, I believe you must have just studied that chapter, Prithu Maharaj and Indra, right? So Indra had done 100 horse sacrifices, Prithu Maharaj had done 99, so then the world was okay. But as soon as Prithu Maharaj tried to do the 100th horse sacrifice, Indra flipped out. What did he do? He stole the horse. So that sacrifice couldn't go on, like stealing the pots or the boga. Yes. So, and then the horse stealing was going back and forwards, until the matter was settled then. Yeah, so even on that level it takes place. Or there is this nice story where Lord Brahma wants to visit Vaikuntha. And the gatekeepers ask, oh, who are you? Lord Brahma. Oh yeah, which one? Who are you? And Lord Brahma gets all agitated. What do you think? What do you mean? I'm Lord Brahma, don't you know? So, and then, Lord Vishnu calls all the Lord Brahmas of all the different universes. He gives them equal association. And our Lord Brahma has 4 heads, but there's others who have 10, 100, thousands, and they all came, paid obeisances with all their clonking heads and helmets there, So that made our Lord Brahma a little more humble. Okay, I'm not the only one. Here's equal association. And His Holiness Varna Swami, he came up with this formula for association, which I believe is not a Shastric formula, but he made it more himself, just to get this point across how important equal association is. He says out of 100% of association, 60 should be spent with equals and only 20 with juniors and 20 with the top level, but 60 with equals. So of course in the Brahmachari ashram it may be quite natural to have that 60% equal association, or in the Brahmacharini ashram, if there is any ladies. I'm not sure how many there are in that moment. But as we become, more senior, as we are longer in Krishna consciousness, we often don't have much equal association at all. And that is a risky position. And sometimes we even avoid it. We feel a little uncomfortable in that equal association. And again, the contaminated intelligence finds all the excuses. Why? I'm too busy. I can't leave my project. I can't go to this, ISKCON Leadership Sangha, which we have every 2 years in Mayapur, where all the leaders come together, or maybe some local sanghas are also there amongst all the TPs and leaders and so on. So sometimes, people subconsciously, they're not even conscious, why, what's happening, but they find so many excuses why they don't have time to go there and why they're so important here in their community, and nothing goes without their presence and all this, So but we should be keen for this equal association because it's so powerfully purifying, Yes. All right, any last questions about associating amongst equals? anything to ask? Well, if there's no question, maybe let's finish with a little private, personal exercise. You turn to your neighbor in share, just 2 minutes, what this whole session gave you. Hopefully something. You know, what are you taking out of here? No need to repeat to each other the whole seminar, but just share for 2 minutes what's you know, the essence here you're walking out with. Just 2 minutes, share something. What's happening there? What's happening here? Srimad-Bhagavatam. Oh. Okay, Guru Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol. Okay, so thank you everyone for coming. I never even thought so many people would come. So thank you, and I hope it was a little useful. So just in case anybody's still